So what you're looking at right now is the TravelJoy dashboard. This is going to be the first page that you see when you log into TravelJoy. And it's going to really consist of 3 sections. We've got our trip stages up here at the top, trip statuses underneath of that. These are both ways of organizing your workflow, and we're going to talk about both of those in a moment. The third thing that we see here is our list of active groups and trips. And by active, I mean we're still working on them. They haven't left and came back yet. So you're going to see some groups that are hidden behind plus signs here. The number in parentheses is the number of trips within that group. So the Jamaica Golf Tour has 5 trips, which we can see by clicking the plus sign. Below all of the active groups, we have our individual trips. These are more like the FITs that aren't part of a group. And just looking from left to right, we're going to see that each trip shows us a trip name, a primary traveler, a departure date, but if we hover over that, we're also going to see the return date, the last time the trip was updated, as well as a couple of drop downs that we're going to go over in a few minutes. Now, just a quick note about what it means for a trip to be updated. Basically, all this means is Amanda Lynn's Sacramento trip was updated 1 day ago, which means either I sent something to Amanda Lynn or she sent something to me. It could be an invoice, it could be just a regular email message, a form. Basically, if there's any action on a trip, that's the last time it was updated. So you can always tell at a glance here which trips probably need follow-ups. Now, before we dive into these drop downs, let's scroll back up to the top of the page and talk about how we can organize our groups and trips to help our workflow go a little bit smoother. Now, trip stages here are kind of a way to categorize where your trip is in the process, from just being a lead to being in the proposal stage to being booked and the client having actually left on the trip. And if you click on one particular stage, like proposal approved, you'll only see the trips that are in that stage. What this helps me do, if I'm starting out my day, I say, hey, I want to go back and see who has approved their proposals, and I want to go book with the supplier. So that we can make sure that they're all booked up. That's kind of how this tool at the top works. And the good news is, for the most part, a trip will go through these stages automatically. When you send the client a proposal, it moves to the proposal sent stage. When they approve it, it moves to the proposal approved stage. When the client departs, it moves to the departed stage. But there are some stages where you have to manually move a trip, and here's why. Now that I see that Amanda Lynn's Sacramento trip here is approved and we're ready to book her, TravelJoy has no way of knowing when you've actually reached out to the supplier and booked that trip. So you have to move the trip manually. So let's say I've pulled up the supplier page for the hotel, the flight, I've got everything booked here, and Amanda Lynn is all set. I need to move the stage here. All I have to do, click the drop down where it says proposal approved, move it to trip booked, and just click it. And you'll see that that disappeared. That's completely normal. The Sacramento trip is now on the trip books tab here. So again, just another way to help you keep organized. And for the most part, this is automated, but you can always change a stage manually. Now, the same goes for trip statuses down here. You'll notice that there's 3 statuses that a trip can be in: waiting on me, waiting on client, or waiting on supplier. Now, the first tip that I'm going to give you is that a trip will never end up in the waiting on supplier stage automatically, because the only automated changes that can be made here is when the client messages you, the trip is now waiting on me. When I message back to the client, that trip is now waiting on the client. So it's just really a way to see who replied last. So let's click on waiting on me. This is a good way for me to start out my day. I can look and see who's still waiting on a response. So Amanda Lynn's waiting for me to let her know that we've booked her trip. Now, again, this is completely automated, but let's just say I got in touch with the supplier and I'm waiting for them to get back to me with a confirmation, and I want to change this stage or the status manually. Same thing as before, I just come over to the drop down and change it from waiting on me to waiting on the supplier. And now I can go back to follow up with my suppliers. And once the supplier gets back to me, I can change the stage back to waiting on me. So again, both the stages and the statuses, just ways to organize your day. Now, if you're ever looking at your dashboard and you kind of feel like there should be a lot more trips showing up right now, that's a question. That's one of the very first questions that a lot of agents run into with TravelJoy is, hey, where did all my trips go? Click all on your trip stages, and then click all on your trip statuses. And that's going to unhide or unfilter all of your trips so you can see them again. So make sure to keep that in mind. Now, we've talked about stages, we've talked about statuses, we've talked about groups and individual trips. There's one other thing on this page that we haven't talked about yet, and that's the archive button over here. Now, earlier I told you this was our list of active trips, but a trip eventually becomes inactive. Either the client goes and comes back and everything went off without a hitch, or they've canceled, or any other number of things could have happened. We're going to say on Amanda Lynn's San Diego trip here that she left and came back. So we'll click the archive button and we can just say that this trip was completed. And you'll see that that San Diego trip has completely disappeared. Again, that's completely normal. The good thing about archive trips is you can always go back and reference them. So if Amanda Lynn reached out and said, hey, where did I stay when I went to San Diego? You can head over here to your archive trips by clicking this button at the top. Scroll down a bit, and there's that San Diego trip right at the top. So your information is never lost. It's just moved out of your active workspace into an archive so you don't have to dig through it. Now, whenever you want to go back to your active trips, of course, you just click the Active tab up here, and it takes you right back. Now, there is one other thing I want to go over before we move on to talking about the menus on the left side, and that is the difference between groups and trips. So the difference is actually really simple. Let's consider that you have 4 adult siblings all going to Cancun, each getting their own room, each paying their own way and filling out their own forms. You have a group consisting of 4 trips, 1 trip per room. The advantage of creating this as a group consisting of 4 trips, like this one right here, is that you can go into each individual trip, communicate back and forth with that client, make sure that they've filled out all their forms, they've paid their invoices, but then you can also send a group message out to everybody at once and everybody's going to get a copy of it. So it really gives you a lot of organizational tools to reach out to individuals as well as the whole group all at once. Now on the flip side, let's say you have a family of 4, mother, father, son, daughter, all 4 going to the same hotel, staying in the same room. Mom's taking care of the invoice. She's taking care of the paperwork. That's just a trip with 4 clients. So you wouldn't need to make a group out of that. Groups are better suited for when you have individual rooms that are each taking care of their own payments and forms. So if you do have any questions about the dashboard, go ahead and type those in the bottom right corner of Crowdcast where it says say something nice, and we will answer those as we go along. If it's a question that we're already going to address later for the sake of time, we will wait till we get to that point. But if it's a question that we don't have on our list to already answer today, we will jump in and get that question answered for you. In the meantime, let's head over here and talk about a few things on the left side menu in TravelJoy. This is how you bounce to different places. Now, of course, we're on the dashboard right now, so you know what that means. We'll go ahead and start with tasks. So the way tasks work in TravelJoy is basically on any given trip or group, you will add a task. You will give that task a due date, and you will get an email when that due date is arriving reminding you about the task. So you will get an email reminder for any task that you set up. Additionally, when you're setting up a task, you can add an action to that task. And here's what an action does. When you add an action to a task, and I'm just going to click on this task as an example, it's going to add a button at the bottom left corner of the reminder that tells you this is the action that you wanted to take, click here to do it. So for example, on this invoice payment reminder here, the action is to send the client a payment reminder email. So when you get an email in your inbox that says, hey, Amanda Lynn's Sacramento trip, her payment is due on July 6th, do you want to remind her about it? There's going to be a little button at the bottom that says View Payment Reminder. And when you click that, a lot of things happen. A TravelJoy window opens up. In that window, it goes to the trip, it grabs the invoice, it attaches the invoice to a payment reminder email, and it puts all of that on your screen. And all you have to do is just click Send. So now we've sent Amanda Lynn her payment reminder just using that button from the bottom of that task. Now we're going to show you how to add your own manual tasks to a trip later, but what I really wanted to show you right now is that email reminders are not the only way that you can see when you have a task coming up. You can also use this tasks page here and click on today, and you'll see everything that's overdue or due up through today. You can also see things that are due in the future by clicking on all. This shows you all of the tasks. You can sort them by when they're due, which group they're part of, or anything else here. And if we only want to see certain types of tasks, we can use the search box. So if we want to know how many send welcome home email tasks we have, we can type that up in the search box and track those down quickly and easily. So that's how tasks work. Again, you can see them here, but you'll also get an email reminder about them. Now, the next thing we're going to do is move down to the calendar. Calendar is going to contain 5 things. The first thing that it's going to contain, quite obviously here, is all of your tasks. So every blue box that you see is a task. And if that task has been completed, there's a line through it. If it hasn't, there's not a line through it, like you can see here with the Cancun trip payment. In addition to tasks, you're also going to see your client's birth dates, anniversaries, and passport expiration dates. Those will be like this little box down here for Ted Stryker. And you're also going to see purple bars representing all of your clients' trips. So all 5 of those things will be displayed on your calendar. It's a good way to kind of get a look at what's coming up this month, this week, or even just today. So the next thing that we're going to look at here is the clients page. And once we get through the clients page here, I do see that we have a couple of questions that have come in. I will get to those right after we talk about this part. The main thing on the clients page that you need to be focused on today is how to get your clients into TravelJoy. So at the top right corner of the clients page, there's a button that says Add Client and a button that says Client Import. So basically we have 2 different options here to get your clients into TravelJoy, and what it really depends on is how quickly you need the clients imported, and whether or not you want to spend a little bit of extra time putting together your spreadsheet. So let's start with the Custom tab. The Custom tab is when you already have a spreadsheet of your own. Maybe it came from another CRM you were using. Maybe it's something you built by hand. Whatever it is, you've already got the spreadsheet. You want to give it to us. Let us handle it. No problem. Go to the Custom tab, drop that file here, and click Import Clients. We will manually grab that file, and we will put all of your clients into TravelJoy for you. No charge for that, but because it is a manual process, it will take 3 to 5 business days for us to get that completed. We get a lot of requests for this. Now, on the flip side, if you really want to hit the ground running with TravelJoy, you can use our instant import process. And that works like this. First, you download our spreadsheet. It's going to look blank. It's going to have 1 row at the top that says things like first, middle, and last name, address, phone number, and so on. And you're going to copy and paste all of your client information into that sheet, save it, come back here and upload it. And because you've used our instant import spreadsheet, all of your clients will be in TravelJoy within just a couple of minutes, and you'll be able to get started right away. You can use both of these as many times as you want. There's no charge for either one, and that's how you get your clients into TravelJoy. So let's take a couple of minutes to answer questions that have come in. We're going to start clear up at the top here. Joan actually asked before we got started today, do you know if it's possible to download a CSV from Clientbase to TravelJoy? That I don't know. What I can tell you for sure is we have a lot of agents who came from that product and did have a spreadsheet. I can't tell you exactly how they got it because that company does take their help guides and hide them behind where you have to put in a username and password to see them. But if you reach out to their support team, I'm sure that they would be happy to help you get that export. Once you have it exported, of course, you can pop right back into TravelJoy and use the steps we just highlighted to get it imported. All right, scrolling down a little bit here, we have Kiana who said, how can your client send you a travel inquiry? We will get to that a little bit later on today. TJ said, can you automate the reminders to send without manually sending? No, we do not currently have an automated messaging tool to go out to clients. Right now, the email reminders are going to go to you. And part of the reason for that is that once we transition into a system where we allow automated emails to be created and sent out, we have to worry about the ability for clients to unsubscribe so we can comply with federal regulations on spam. Anything where the messaging is completely automated has a lot more government regulation, and we do plan to get there. It's just not something that we have just yet. When we do have fully automated messaging though, TJ, we will be reaching out, letting everybody know about that, as it is something that we are definitely focused on adding to the product down the road. So thank you for the question. Sharon said, how do you add your own template? At the very, very end of our discussion today, I'm going to show you a list of articles and guides that are kind of additional supplemental learning that are in addition to our basic webinar. And templates are something that's more of an advanced feature. I will show you where to find that. If you do have to drop off before the end today, the short answer is if you go to the tutorials page and scroll to the very bottom of the tutorials page, you are going to see, I think it's the second video from the bottom, about a 6-minute long video that shows you how to make every type of template, whether it's an email template, a form template, or so on. So be sure to check that out at the bottom of the tutorials page. And you know, if you do have any questions about that, of course, you'll be able to reach out for one-on-one support via email at that time. All right, so we are at the step today where we're going to create a trip. And the trip that we're going to be creating today is between myself as the agent and a fictional client known as Amanda Lynn. We're going to be showing you both what you'll see on your side as the agent, but we'll also be showing you what the client will see and walking through those steps as well. And to get started, we're going to start at the top left corner of TravelJoy, click the pink Create button, and you'll see that we can create a trip, a group, or a client. We're going to start today by clicking Trip. All right, and all we really need to get started is just a traveler name. If this is a brand new agent, or a brand new client, I'm sorry, who has not booked with you before, you can add them on the fly by clicking Create New. Toss in their first and last name and email address and click Add, and you've just created a new client. In our case, though, we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the drop down of our existing client list, and we're going to choose Amanda Lynn. Now we just need to go somewhere. Let me jog my memory. All right, we're going to go to Denver today. So I'm just going to call this Amanda Lynn's Denver trip. And at the top, we'll see a trip photo. The trip photo appears at the top of every form, proposal, and invoice that this client will see. And it's meant to evoke sort of some excitement about the place that they're going. Now, South Beach doesn't quite look like Denver. So let's choose a different photo by clicking Choose Photo. And we're just going to search here for Denver. Now, when we choose a picture, we're going to want to go with something that looks really good at sort of a wide screen angle. And the reason for that is it's going to be a banner at the top of these pages that your our clients are going to see. So let's go with this one. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And now, before we click Create Trip, I want to show you guys one more thing really quickly here. There is a More Trip Details button with a blue plus sign. Anytime you see a blue plus sign in TravelJoy, what that means is this is an optional section that you can add if you want to, but it's not required. You see there's a few things in here like the trip starting date, the budget, confirmation number, and so on. We're going to skip that for now, but anytime you see a blue plus sign, keep an eye on that. It's a way that you can add more information while you're building something. So I just clicked Create Trip, and we have our first trip, just like that. Now, the bulk of the information as we build this trip is going to fall into one of these 5 tabs going across the top here. But right now, all 5 of these tabs are empty because all we have right now is just a shell of a trip. So what I want to do first is communicate back and forth with Amanda Lynn. And what we'll be doing over the next 15 minutes or so is sending Amanda Lynn a form, a proposal, and 2 different types of invoices. All 4 of those things start over here with the blue Create button. When you click the blue Create button, you see all 4 of the things that I just mentioned: form, proposal, 2 different invoices. And we're going to start with a form. Now, just to define this term really quick, a form is anything that a client can fill out and send back to you. And so TravelJoy by default has 8 forms built in. Things like passport information, things like a travel insurance waiver. But the good news is each of these 8 templates can be customized, and you can create new ones from scratch. So you can have as many forms as you want in TravelJoy, and we'll be showing you at the very end of today's discussion where to find information on how to build your own forms. More of an advanced feature, but we will show you where to go learn about that later today. In this case, we're just going to choose the client inquiry form because we want to learn more about the client's needs. And then we're going to come up here where it says Next, Review Email. Now, the page that we're looking at here is the email that we're about to send to Amanda Lynn. It says, "Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I'd love to know more about what your needs might be, and if I could be a good fit, please fill me in on a few details." When we send this, there will be a button in it that the client can click to fill out the form that we're sending. Pretty straightforward. Just know everything in here is customizable. So if you happen to know that Amanda goes by Mandy, you can just change that right there in the email before you click send. So we went ahead and clicked send, and we're going to pop over to Amanda Lynn's inbox. Now, if you remember back at the very beginning, about 20 minutes ago, I sent a payment reminder to Amanda Lynn. We're just going to go ahead and delete that. But now we have a brand new email that just came in. So now we're looking at things from the client's perspective. Here's the email we just sent her, complete with the name change, and the button at the bottom. So when we click that, here's what your client's going to see when they fill out a client inquiry form. First and foremost, got that big banner at the top of the page to help them get excited about where they're going. They'll see my logo on the left, their details on the right, and then filling out form 4. What this is basically for is when you have a trip that consists of multiple travelers. So that mother, father, son, daughter scenario that I came up with earlier, the client can fill this out for themselves, but then they'll be able to go right back in once they've submitted and fill it out for each family member as well. Now, the advantage to doing it that way, there's 2 of them. The first advantage is the form's not going to be super long and confusing, asking for 4 different people's information on the same form. But the second and even cooler feature here is that each form submission is going to sync up with the client profile. The client's answers here are synced and stored in their profile, so you can go back and review them later. And right now, it's not going to matter too much because Amanda Lynn's trip here is a solo trip, so we'll skip that for now. All right, where would you like to go? Let's choose Denver. Let's choose some travel dates in late 2021 and set our departure city as Cleveland. We'll leave the rest of this empty. You guys know how to fill out a form. Top right corner, we're going to go ahead and click Submit Form. And a few things are going to happen when Amanda Lynn clicks Submit Form. First, she's going to get a thank you message on her screen. At the bottom right corner of that message is an Add Traveler button, just in case she needs to go back and fill it out for a roommate or family member. The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an email in your inbox letting you know, hey, Amanda Lynn just filled out this form. Here's what her answers were. The third thing that's going to happen is her answers are going to show up on the messages feed for her trip right here. Denver, got those dates in November, got her departure city. So all of those answers sync right up on the messages tab so you can see that she's answered. Now, the next thing that we're going to do, now that we know about where Amanda Lynn wants to go and when, is we're going to put together a proposal. Now, we're fast forwarding over a lot here, but it's stuff that happens outside of TravelJoy. Like now you're going to go look at your suppliers and say, what's the best options? We're going to put all this together. And we're going to fast forward through that to the part where you're actually presenting your findings to your client. And to do that, we're going to click the Create button again. This time we're going to click Proposal. And this is a good time to mention TravelJoy is currently working on an itinerary builder. I don't have an ETA on when that's going to be released, but I can say that right now we don't have an itinerary builder built into TravelJoy. But there is good news, and the good news is beyond the fact that we're working on one, we also are compatible with just about any itinerary building method that you're probably currently using. And when you're building a proposal, you're going to provide your itinerary one of 3 ways. Either by uploading your itinerary as a file, by providing a link to your online itinerary, or by creating a document that contains your itinerary. And just put quite simply, if you're using a Word document or a PDF or something like that to build your itinerary, you're just going to click File Upload and drop it in this big box here, and that's it. You've uploaded your itinerary. You can go ahead and send it. If you use an online itinerary builder that gives you a link to provide your clients, you're going to choose Web Link from this box and just copy and paste it into this box here. And again, you're all set. You've attached the Web Link itinerary and you can send it to your client. Now, the third option is a little bit different. So when I choose New Document here, it's going to give me a big empty box where I could either type up an itinerary from scratch if I wanted to, or we could use this nifty trick. We can copy and paste directly from our supplier page into this big empty box so that we've added the itinerary, and then we can go ahead and send it to the client. Now, regardless of which of the 3 different methods you might have used here, 2 more things to know. Number 1, there's another optional blue plus sign where you can add some more details. And number 2, you send this the same way you send a form, by going up to the top right, clicking Next, Save and Review Email, then scrolling down and clicking Send. So now we've sent our client a proposal. So a couple things to note really quick. Now that we have sent this proposal to the client, the stage is proposal sent. The status is waiting on client. And down here under the messaging feed, we can see that we sent this proposal to the client. If we hover over the date here, we'll see that we sent it 1 minute ago at 3:27 p.m. Now let's pop over to the client's inbox and see what they see. So we'll go ahead and open this email, your proposal from TJ Travel, and the client will click View Trip Proposal, and here's what they'll see. None of this should be too surprising. First, we got that big trip photo at the top, logo, trip details, and then if you scroll down, we've got that full itinerary that we had just copied and pasted in a moment ago. Really popular question we get right about this time every week is, can the client click Change Flight? Nope, they can't. Those buttons are inactive. They'll just be able to read and decide if they're stoked about this trip or not. And we're going to assume that Amanda Lynn is stoked, and she's going to come up here and click Approve Proposal at the top right. Now again, a few things are going to happen. First, she gets a thank you message. Second, you get an email notification letting you know that the trip has been approved. Third, a few different things are going to happen in TravelJoy itself. Now I'm going to click Refresh, and we'll see that Proposal Sent has changed to Proposal Approved. Waiting on Client has changed to Waiting on Me. And we've got this blue bar here that says, congratulations, the trip proposal has been approved. So we've got all that information right there at our fingertips as soon as Amanda Lynn approves that proposal. All right, so we're going to be getting into invoicing in just a couple of minutes here, but I do see that we had a couple of questions and I wanted to go ahead and address those. Leander, pulling files from the Files tab is something that we'll be getting to a little bit later. I'd say probably in about 10 minutes. So we'll skip that one for now, but we will come back to it. All right, now we have, oh, it looks like that was the only question. The other one was just a hello message. So we will skip that for now, and we will come back over here to build an invoice. This is the part of the discussion where we discuss why TravelJoy has 2 different invoice types, and we also discuss why your account may only have 1 right now. So the difference between a supplier invoice and a direct invoice is pretty straightforward. A direct invoice is going to go directly into your bank account. So this is going to be for things like trip planning fees primarily. If you are collecting funds from the client for yourself, this is the type of invoice you would use. Now, you might not have access to direct invoices yet, and if that's the case, here's why. First, we need to know where to send your money. And then second, we have to comply with some regulations around payment processing. So what you're going to want to do is come over here to Settings, and under Settings, go to Direct Payments. When you get there, there's going to be some information to fill out, a few questions to answer, a place to securely enter your bank account information. When you submit that, it's going to come over to us. We will go through an automatic review process, and once that's done in a business day or 2, we will send you an email notification letting you know that you are approved to use direct payments. So that's what the direct invoice is for. Now, the supplier invoice, on the other hand, does not collect payment. Instead, it just collects payment information. So what I mean by that is when you send your client a supplier invoice, the client's going to be prompted for their credit card number, but instead of being charged, what's actually going to happen is that they're going to securely provide you with their credit card number, their credit card details, and a signed authorization permitting you to use those credit card details to go pay a supplier. That way, the money goes straight from the client to the supplier, with you kind of working as a middleman to collect that data and supply it to the supplier. So that's the difference between a supplier invoice and a direct invoice. So let's build a supplier invoice first. And when we build a supplier invoice, it's important to note that there are 3 sections to a supplier invoice. We got items at the top here, This is going to be things like hotel, airfare, tours. We've got settings in the middle, and then we've got a payment schedule at the bottom. So things like deposit, monthly payments, final payment. So let's start at the top by adding an item. And from the drop-down, we're going to choose hotel. Now, all we really need in order to make this invoice work is a price under unit cost, $1,500. And that's all that we need to add. But if your client gets an invoice, it just says hotel, $1,500, they're probably going to want a little bit more information. So let's show you what all these little boxes look like when they're filled out. Got to add that Oxford comma. All right. And the information that I'm adding here, of course, isn't really important. It's all just examples. And then, so once we've added all of this information in, that means that this information is going to show up on the invoice, so the client will have more confidence that the right room and the right check-in and check-out times have all been booked. Now, the other half of this is to go from the item tab to the commission tab. This is the part the client can't see, but of course it's very important to your business because this is where you're tracking, collecting those commissions from the suppliers. So you're going to add in your supplier name, your booking date, when you expect to collect commission, and how much you expect that commission to be. And then we'll go ahead and click Save. So now we've added an item to the invoice, and we can repeat that process over and over by using this drop down here. We can add airfare, we can add tours, packages, anything that we want. Once we've added everything to the top, we're going to get down to this settings section in the middle. And really, there's only two things that I'm going to point out here. The first one is those little question marks in the black circles. Because TravelJoy is such a small team, we have worked very hard to put answers to common questions right in the product. So what we've done is if we get a lot of questions about a very specific thing within TravelJoy, we'll put the answer beside a little question mark. So when we click on this one, it says an invoice can only be assigned to one client. It cannot be shared. It cannot be reassigned. So what that means is basically if you have two roommates, Amanda Lynn and say her sister Angie Lynn, sharing a hotel room, and that hotel room is $1,500 in total, what you're actually going to want to do here is pop up here, change this to $750, send it to Amanda Lynn, and then make a second invoice also for $750 and send it to Angie Lynn. One invoice cannot be assigned to or paid for by more than one person. Each person gets their own invoice. And that's why that question mark is there, to let you know all about that. If you want to know more about why, there is an article that you can click right here to learn about that. Now, moving down to the last section, the payment schedule. This is where you're going to set up the deposit, the monthly payments, however you want to set it up. And I'm going to start by just clicking Add Payment. When I click Add Payment, we have a due date of today, a description of just the word payment, and it's going to be for the full amount due, $1,500. But you'll notice each one of those has a pencil icon beside it. So let's click that pencil icon and see what we can do. Looks like every single one of these fields can be edited. So we're going to change the $1,500 to $150. We're going to change the description from payment to deposit. And now there's still $1,350 remaining to be added to the payment schedule. Now we could click Add Payment over and over and go through that process a few more times, or we can click Add Multiple Payments and choose to add some equal monthly payments between now and let's just say March of next year, due on the 4th of every month through March of 2021, all for equal amounts. So what we've just done is created a payment schedule that on the 4th of every single month between now and March 4th, there's an equal payment due. So we just saved ourselves a ton of time, obviously. Now this invoice is ready to go, but I want to throw one more curveball at you, and that is, let's say the client has already paid their deposit and you want to reflect that on the invoice before you send it. And quite simply, come up here and click Mark as Paid. And on the next dialog, uncheck the option to send a receipt. Remember, they've already paid it, so they already have a receipt. And click Mark as Paid again. Now when we scroll down, the invoice accurately reflects that the invoice is paid. We can come up here and click Next, Save and Review Email, and Send. Now I'm going to show you guys in just a couple of minutes exactly what it looks like when Amanda Lynn pays that invoice, but before we do, let's go ahead and create a direct invoice as well. This is the type that collects payment that goes directly into your bank account. And basically all that I want to do here really quickly is show you that the top item section, the middle settings section, and the payment schedule are all exactly the same. It's exactly the same to build a direct invoice as it is a supplier invoice, except these two fields. We have accept payments by credit card, by bank transfer, or by either one. And to learn more about that, you can click the question mark where you're going to see our processing fees as well as our transfer times for both credit card processing and bank transfers. So that's one thing that you can choose. So for example, bank transfers have a lower processing fee, but they also take about a week to get to you because they work kind of like the digital version of a paper check where we have to wait for it to clear the bank. So we have that information behind the question mark for you. And we also have this information behind a question mark. This is an explanation of the client convenience fee. And simply put, this just chooses whether you pay the processing fee out of what the client has paid, or if the client pays the processing fee on top of what they've paid. Pretty self-explanatory, but if you ever want to learn more about it, that's where you find that information, is in that little question mark box. Okay, let's head on over to Amanda Lynn's invoice. And in that email, we're going to click the button that says Open Invoice. And here's what we're going to see. We've already discussed what appears up here at the top, so we're going to move down to My Agency Info. This shows up because it's an invoice, and on any invoice, you want to have information about your business at the top. The next thing that we see is this Traveler section, which allows Amanda Lynn to one more time look at her first, middle, and last name, her date of birth, and her gender to make sure that her documentation is all going to be right. This is important when you're traveling internationally, especially, so this is one more opportunity for her to confirm that. From there, she's going to see all the details that we entered earlier, the total amount, what she has paid so far, and what's still due. The last thing she's going to see is this 3-step simple process for authorizing a payment. She's going to choose how much to pay. She's either going to use a card that's already on file or add a new one. And then she's going to sign. This is my real signature, so don't steal it. Promise it's the only joke I tell during these videos. And then she's going to click Authorize Payment. Again, just like before, when she authorizes payment, she gets a thank you message. You get an email letting you know that she has authorized payment, and her payment authorization shows up right here in the messages feed, like you see right here. So now that we've sent everything back and forth that we're going to send back and forth between the agent and the client today, we're going to talk about these 5 tabs up here: messages, files, and so on. And Leander, that means we'll be getting to your question in just a couple of moments as well. Basically speaking, the messages tab is every bit of information that has gone from you to the client and from the client to you, with the newest information always at the very top. So if you scroll to the bottom, this takes us all the way back to 3:22 p.m., almost 20 minutes ago, when we sent the client inquiry form. Then we see her response, our proposal, her response, our invoice, her response. The one thing that we haven't talked about yet is this little box that says type your message here. This is where you're going to click if you just want to send your client a plain old email. Not an invoice, not a proposal, not a form, just a regular old email. You can send it from this box. Click send, add any attachments that you want, of course. That's all there at your disposal. The next tab is the Files tab. So when you go to the Files tab, the first thing that you're going to notice is that we have 3 things here already. These are the files that we sent to our client. And if I know it's a little bit faded and gray here, but if you look in the middle, there's an I for invoice, a P for proposal, and an F for form. You can also add your own files by clicking this box and drop them right here on the screen. And when you've added a file to this section, you can click the three dots at the top right corner of it to send that file to the client. So Leander, that's how you would pull up a file from the Files tab to send it to the client, is finding that file, clicking the three dots, and then there will be a little link that says Send to Client. For the rest of the files here, those three dots are important as well. So for example, if you ever need to come back to an invoice to update the information on that invoice, you can click the three dots at the top right corner. You can click the edit button, and that's going to take you back into the invoice so you can, for example, add travel insurance, update the payment schedule, anything you need to do. You'll also be able to duplicate, resend the invoice to your client, or anything else that you need to do from this tab using that three-dot menu. Now, while we're on the Files tab here, I want to click on the invoice here and open it up in a new tab. And there's a reason for that. When we go to this invoice, we're going to scroll to the bottom and we're going to see that the client has authorized a payment. That's what we did just a few minutes ago here. What I want to show you guys really quickly is how we can take that authorized payment and go pay our supplier. Really, really simple. Click on that little credit card icon there, and automatically TravelJoy is going to open one of the credit cards in the list. The card that it opens is the one that Amanda Lynn used to authorize payment, just like magic, so you know you're using the right card. From here, you're going to call your supplier or go to their website or whatever it is, and you're going to pay the supplier using the client's credit card. Once you have completed that and you're sure the payment has gone through, you can exit out of that window, mark the payment as paid, leave that box checked to send the client a receipt, and then click Mark as paid one more time. So you just sent a client a receipt for the payment that they made. So that's how paying your suppliers will look. Question just came in from TJ. Do clients see these forms or just me? And the answer is anything that you send to the client is going to be in their email inbox and they'll be able to open it up. But they cannot log into your TravelJoy and look through your files. So they wouldn't be able to see anything that's here because this is your account that you're logged into. But again, you know, as long as you have emailed the form to them, they'll be able to click the button to view that form at any given time. Next thing we're going to look at here is the tasks page. And this is where we go to create new tasks, but there's already a bunch of tasks here. There's a reason for that. When we created the payment schedule on that invoice that we made earlier, every invoice payment that had a due date automatically had a reminder associated with it. So this payment that's due on September 4th, for example, you're going to get an email reminder 7 days before that. So late August, and that email reminder is going to say, hey, Amanda Lynn has a payment coming up for her Denver trip. Do you want to send her a reminder? And that's what we showed you earlier, where you click the view payment reminder button and then you click send. Now to add your own task, you're just going to go up to the top of this page and click where it says enter a new task and type in send a welcome home email and then click add. Then you're going to want to click on that task that you've just added so you can manipulate the settings a little bit. So for example, we could give it a due date. We know that Amanda Lynn gets back on November 22nd of next year, so we could make the due date for this welcome home email November 23rd. But there's a better way. You can go ahead and click set relative due date instead and make it 1 day after the trip end date. The advantage that we just gave ourselves is if Amanda Lynn's trip gets rescheduled, this task will get rescheduled too, so we don't accidentally send her a welcome home email while she's still in Denver. The next thing that we're going to do down here is set an action, and that action is send email, and the email to send is the welcome home email. These two things that we just did at the bottom here, this is how you get that button at the bottom of your task that makes it a 2-click process to send the message along to your client. So basically now, on November 23rd, I'm going to get an email that says, hey, Amanda Lynn's home. Do you want to click the button below to send a welcome home email? And I'll do that. In 2 clicks, she'll have her message. Now the calendar tab here I'm going to skip because the calendar tab for a trip is the exact same thing as the calendar tab up here. It contains tasks and the trip dates, but it's only for this trip. So pretty self-explanatory what you're going to find in here. And then the last thing is notes. Notes are private to you. Nobody can see the notes except for you. You can type in as many notes as you want. Every note that you type in will appear down here at the bottom, and it's going to be date stamped and time stamped when you hover over the date. Every note can be edited, every note can be deleted, and again, you can add as many as you want. They're all private. And one final note about notes is that once you've added a note to a trip, there will always be a little sticky note icon beside the word notes. If you see that icon, it means that this trip does have notes added. So that's what that's all about. One final thing to go over on trips here is this little button with 3 dots. It looks pretty unassuming, but it's actually pretty powerful because when you click on these 3 dots, you have the option to edit the trip. And when you click to edit the trip, a box comes up with all kinds of powerful tools. You can change the trip photo, you can add the trip to a group, take the trip out of a group, change the primary traveler, add additional travelers, change the trip dates, all kinds of stuff. So if you're looking to change the overarching details of a trip in some major way, it's probably going to be in this menu. Once you're done, click Save, and all your changes will be applied automatically. So guys, we're coming up on 10 minutes left, and at this part of the conversation, I like to kind of explain this part because it's really important in the moment. And that part is that I'm on a delay. When you hear me, what I'm saying on your speakers is something that I said about 2 minutes earlier due to the wonders of technology. And what that means is that if you ask a question in the last 2 minutes of our presentation today, I might have already disconnected at the end of the webinar, and I may never see your question. So all of that was to lead up to this. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer at all, go ahead and ask those in the next 3 to 5 minutes here. Coming up here in about 5 minutes, we will be cutting off questions in the webinar for the day. But before I move on from that topic, I did want to let you know that tomorrow we are having an advanced Q&A webinar for TravelJoy. And the topics tomorrow are completely up to you. Tomorrow's webinar is going to be an opportunity to show up, ask anything you want, no matter how advanced it is, and I will show you an answer live on the screen. It will be at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, just like today's webinar, but it'll be tomorrow. And the link that I am posting in chat right now is the link to sign up for tomorrow's webinar at 3 o'clock. Now, again, there won't be any content. We'll just be answering your questions, so be sure to bring your questions along with you. All right, what we'll be doing in the next 10 minutes is going over how to find answers to your questions and how to get signed up for TravelJoy. Before we do that, TJ did have a question. Any way to automate tasks for similar trips so I'm not adding them one by one to a trip? That is a great question. The answer is yes. And what I'm going to show you next isn't your answer, but what it is exactly where your answer is located. So I'm going to start by going to templates and then task lists. Templates and then task lists over here on the left-hand side. This is the place where you're going to go to build a list of tasks that you can import into every trip. So that is exactly what you're looking for. But you need to know how to do that. So I'm going to click the blue support button down here at the bottom right corner of the page, and you'll see that the very first guide that shows up is create a task list template. All right, so when you click on that, you'll see the guide here. It's a little small. If you want to look at it full screen, just click the little arrow at the top right corner, and it will open up that guide in a new window for you. Now, the kicker here is that TravelJoy knows which page you're on, and that little blue support button is going to give you suggestions based on the page that you're on. So for example, if you want to learn how to build email forms, and you click the support button, the first article is going to be about email forms, or form templates, sorry. If you don't find the answer to your question, you can just type in your question. Can I refund? and it's going to give you a few guides about getting refunds. There they are. Show a refund, refund a payment on a direct invoice. So this is one of the 2 places where you can get all the information that you need to use TravelJoy. Now the other place is over here on the tutorials page. The tutorials page over here on the left has a number of things. The most important is how to learn more once we're done today. So once we scroll down, we're going to see that the first video is TravelJoy 101. That's where you are right now. TravelJoy 101 recording covers everything that we went over today, and you can review that at any time. The second one is something called TravelJoy 201. This is one of our Q&A sessions from last year that was really good and went into depth on a lot of popular topics, so be sure to check that out for advanced learning. Now, the more important part, in my personal opinion, is this series of 9 videos that we've made that are called TJ Tutorials. These 9 videos are each about 5 to 7 minutes long. They each cover one specific topic, and they are in chronological order to learn the best methods. So as you go down through here, you'll see that if you want to learn about groups, we have a 6-minute video on that. If you want to learn about booking pages, or tasks and task lists, or templates or reporting, we have 6-minute videos on each one of those, so I highly recommend checking those videos out. And the last thing about this page is the button that says View Help Center and Forum at the top. When you click that button, you're going to go to a page here. And on that page, you'll find 2 things. First, you'll find all of our Help Center articles. And then second, you'll find our community where it says Join the Conversation. The community is a forum where you can communicate with other TravelJoy users. This isn't a place for support, but it's a place where you can talk back and forth with other users to learn best practices. So be sure to check that out. It's not super popular yet because it's relatively new, but as we grow and we show people that it exists, we have a feeling it's going to be very popular. Okay, last thing to know about getting support before I answer the questions in chat is this. When you click the support button, if you need to reach me, all you've got to do is click the Get in Touch button right here. Once you click Get in Touch and leave a message, you can shoot me an email. You can include screenshots if you want. The important thing to know is that it does take me, typically during business hours, around 2 hours to reply to most messages. That is our average response time. So for example, for the last hour, I haven't answered any support requests because I've been here on the webinar, but I'll be getting to those in just a few moments. So with that said, for anybody who hasn't asked their question yet in chat, this is where you're going to want to go once we wrap up today to let me know any questions that come to mind later. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and answer the questions that we have in chat here. Kiana said, can you answer my question? Let me scroll up. Kiana said, how can your client send you a travel inquiry? So a travel inquiry is a form that you can send your clients. Your client can't really send you things. They can reply to things that you've sent them. One thing that you could potentially look into here is how to embed travel inquiry form on your website. So if you type in the word embed here on the support page, you're going to see an option to embed a client inquiry form on your website. This will allow your client to go to your website and send you an inquiry that way. So that's probably going to be the best way to get that. Next question here. Janet asked if there's a recording. We have already gone over that in the past few minutes, probably since you asked, but it is on the tutorials page, so be sure to check that out. Joan said, I have a question regarding my setting for DNS email settings. So please go ahead and reach out with the support button about that. We don't want to show everybody your email settings today on the webinar, but if you reach out using the Get in Touch button in TravelJoy, I can definitely answer that question for you. It's just there's some secure, sensitive information in there that we don't want shared on the screen here. All right, that wraps us up for questions. We've got about 3 minutes to go here, and that's just enough time to show you exactly how to sign up for TravelJoy and give you a promo code to get a little discount. And to do that, click Settings over here on the left-hand side, Settings, and then Membership. Once you get to the membership page, you're going to see 3 options. There are no difference in features here. There's not like a premium tier where you get some, special feature. These are just based on the length of time that you sign up. $30 for a monthly membership. Getting an annual membership is like paying for 10 months and getting 2 free. And then paying for the 3-year membership is like paying for 25 months and getting 11 free. Obviously a good deal, but maybe not everybody is ready to jump all the way into that. So let's start with a discount on your monthly membership. To get started with that, click enter promo code at the upper right corner of the screen and type in TJ Rocks 2020. That's TJ Rocks 2020. And click save. When you do that, you'll see that you get $15 per month for your first 2 months and then back to regular price after that. If you want to switch, the very last popular question in these webinars is, can I switch after my discount? And the answer is absolutely. Once your first 2 months are up, if you come back to settings, then membership here, you're going to see a little blue button that says upgrade to annual membership at the $300 price. So you can do that with just a couple of clicks. All right, guys, I know it's a ton of information in a very short amount of time, so I'm 100% sure that there will be questions. Don't hesitate to reach out. That's exactly what I'm here for. I want to thank you all for bringing your questions today, as well as bringing your patience, because again, I know it's a lot to go over in a very short amount of time. I look forward to speaking with each one of you individually here over the coming weeks and months, and I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your week.